Welcome to the NHC GOP podcast. I'm Rule Sample. On my very far right, as always, John Hinnett, the chair of the GOP. John, good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And in the center square today, joining us from the campaign trail, Richard Collier. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Rule. How you doing? How's everyone out in podcast land?
They can't talk back.
They can. They'll send something to them.
Well, Richard is joining us for the campaign trail out from the city council race here for Wilmington, North Carolina. And we thought it would be a good idea for you all to get to know him. So, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, so Richard, you're a civil engineer, 30 years experience. You've been in Wilmington close to 30 years. 18 years you served on either the city or the county planning board. Probably one of the biggest projects you were involved in was the update to the city's land development code.
That's right.
Or is it land development code?
Land development code, yep.
What are some of the, that was passed in December of 2019?
2020.
So December of 2020. For the folks who don't live in the zoning code like some of us do, what were some of the biggest changes that people need to understand that happen? Because a lot of people seem to be, one of the hot button issues is development. Mm-hmm. And one of the concerns is, clear cutting trees, but then there's this density question. But there's also this question of there's some projects underway right now that people point to and say, that's a problem. And some of that stuff was approved for construction before December 2020. What do people need to know about the new code versus what was old? Because you played a pivotal role. You helped write it essentially.
Right.
What are some of the biggest? Give me three major things people should be aware of that changed in our land development code when it was updated.
Be happy to. Yes, in 2020, started in about 2018, we started rewriting the code. Our old code was just that. It was old. It needed to be updated. So what we changed was the basic format, how it was structured, made it a little more user-friendly for everyone coming in to develop in in the city of Wilmington. Big changes were, a big change was the tree preservation or tree mitigation type ordinance that was added to the code a bit. That brought in all of various sizes of trees, various styles of trees, trying to protect all of the Wilmington historical trees, the live oaks, the longleaf pines, and others, magnolias. There's quite a few of them. And then adding in portions of that if you want to take some of those trees down, then you have to go before the Board of Adjustment and physically ask for a variance to have a certain tree removed. They added in dollars and cents too, so it pays into a mitigation fund. If you're taking more trees out that are of the regulated style, then you pay a fee to be able to take those trees down. So that was one of the biggest ones. We also restructured some of the residential code, particularly multifamily and townhome and density, how the densities are calculated, what the densities will be. And I think beyond that, they added in, there was a lot more buffering that we put into from adjacent properties, like buffering the apartment communities or any non-used differing zoning classifications. Yeah. So, an industrial would be zoned heavily against whatever. And they also set up where, we don't want apartment communities to be built right on the property line adjacent to single-family residential. We're trying to create a buffer or a separation.
Yeah, there's a great example of a failure to properly buffer. A lot of people don't realize that River Lights was annexed into the city voluntarily so they could get the density they wanted. But there's a multifamily component on the east side of River Road, and I believe it backs up to Silver Lake subdivision. So if you take Silver Lake from Carolina Beach Road and you wind your way around back to River Road, you'll see there's these one-story brick ranches that are county residents, not city residents, and out the back door, the land was built up, and then they built 4-story apartments. So they got these 4-story towers over in the backyard. It was really egregious, I thought. And now that we have a buffer, I think that will help screen.
It will help screen.
Yeah.
because everyone here can look it up and see, I did all of River Lights and was involved in those apartments. Unfortunately for the adjacent neighbors, there's a buffering there, but there's a 70 or 100-foot wide power easement that goes through this, cleared. We actually took the land down instead of built it up.
Okay.
But your point's well taken. That is what the buffering is to do, is to start to screen the differences between.
And so the power easement's kind of a problem there because you can't grow trees.
The power
there.
easement is a problem,
Okay.
yes.
So, 2 kids, 2 adult children.
2 adult children, 2 grandkids. Grandkids are 4 and 18 months.
Okay. And you grew up on a tobacco farm, right?
Grew up on a tobacco farm, worked for 20 years in a tobacco farm pretty much every day.
Okay. So something you haven't told us about your background is you're a bit of a warbler. You're a singer of songs.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Was at least.
Yeah, so I was knocking doors, then I learned that about you.
I was in the band The Imitations for 13 years. So I joined them in 2008 and was with my four greatest friends in the world. So
Great.
We had a great time.
All right. All right, good. We won't make you sing today.
You don't want me to sing. Not today. Not today.
So what have you? What kind of experiences you had on the campaign trail so far?
I tell you, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about more things that go on in the city that maybe I didn't have a full knowledge of before. I've met great folks. Everybody wants to be heard, and I think everybody needs to be heard. I think they need to be listened to. I think that I've found that accountability is going to be a big thing for anybody on the city council. You need to be accountable for the actions that we put in place. I think that transparency, that's what the folks want to hear about. I know crime has been a huge thing that has come up, and coupled with the police department and bringing on a new chief and hopefully bringing that culture of Wilmington PD back into Wilmington's culture. Yeah. They're expensive. That's the other thing I've learned. Quite expensive a campaign is. But folks are really good. Everybody in this city loves the city. And that's what you hear overwhelmingly.
Let's talk a little bit about crime. Property crime in 2024 was up 21%, largest in modern record. Mm-hmm. With the number varies, but approximately the city WPD is down 75 officers short. What do you attribute that to?
Probably a lot of things. We've seen that the pay needs to be re-looked at and re-verified against everybody in the communities our size and the folks, communities around us. We've lost some to neighboring PDs because they're taking less calls and they make slightly more money. So we really need to go back and look at the full compensation package of the Wilmington PD. I think the culture had some to do with it too. The last 5 years seem to have been fairly difficult. And I'm hoping that we now bring a culture back in where it's a good place to be, a good place to work, and people that really want to help the communities. Not any one community; they've got to help every community. And that's the reason I think they're leaving. Purely has to do with an overall compensation and going somewhere where it may be easier.
Yeah, I find people that choose a career in first responders are a lot like teachers or healthcare workers. They're kind of called. Mm-hmm. It's not like they drew a straw in school and said, "Hey, I'm going to go do this." Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a calling, right?
Yeah. When you're, elementary school, you ask a kid what they want to be. A lot of them are going to be firemen, policemen, nurses. But there's a lot of that goes on. But I agree with you. As you grow, you're really called to it. My brother's a policeman. He was retired highway patrolman. Now he's over the chief deputy for Pender County. So I understand that calling, and because I've seen it in my brother. And those folks are risking their life every day to try and protect the city or their jurisdiction, and we need to support them. Okay. We need to support them wholeheartedly.
On homelessness, there was another somewhat contentious city council meeting this past Tuesday. And for lack of a better phrase, they kicked the can down the road on this camping ban ordinance. Where do you think we stand right now? What is your assessment of where we stand right now?
Well, I think they're making edits to it so that it's more beneficial, is the way I see it. They're trying to get it to where it's something that works. I think Luke Waddell's original writing of the ordinance was good. I do think Mr. Joyner at the previous council meeting came up with some wonderful edits, I think, in his motion. I have not heard this week's council meeting, so I don't know exactly what they did. I did hear it got kicked down the road for a second reading. And I think the big thing is we need to work on homelessness, but we've also got to have the safety side of it. We need folks to be rehoused. But unfortunately, there are folks that are, they just like to be homeless, and there may be other issues that are in. I think adding in the social workers and adding in mental health workers with the police are going to be a big deal, because our policemen are not trained to do that, and they shouldn't be trained to do that. So I think the ordinance ultimately will pass, and I think it will be of benefit, but we need to make sure that we all follow through with it.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize what the procuring cause was, and one of those was when the county, as a dereliction of duty, allowed a camp to fester at that parking deck by the library there for so long. And when the county finally stepped in and acted, nobody in the city thought, well, curious where those people will go. Mm-hmm. Well, they just spread out throughout downtown, and so it became a problem. And then they closed Salvation Army, which was a 60-bed resource right there within walking distance. And so it seems like we're moving forward slowly, but it seems like the city is eventually going to get to it in a bipartisan manner. One of the things that has come up a little bit in some of the town halls we've had and some of the candidate forums was funding for nonprofits, and there's this question about 26 or 27 agencies that work in homeless services. If we had to pick, there's no silver bullet to fixing homelessness. But if there was one aspect of addressing homelessness, and there was a select group of nonprofits that was their specialty, would you agree to scale one, like, hey, nonprofit ABC, you're in this aspect of homelessness. So in homelessness, there's people that do emergency shelter, there's housing, there's social work, there's mental health, there's there's people who show up and feed them on the street corners.
Right.
What's the thing you would do? What service would you fund to scale to make the biggest dent in addressing homelessness in our community?
The one that I am most impressed with is Good Shepherd. I think they've done a really good job of taking the ones that are really down on their luck, and maybe they're paycheck to paycheck of being unhoused. They bring them in, and they have a place for them to be during the day if they want to stay there. Then they also have beds for the nighttime. Well, they want to expand and add more beds, so they have more places.
They have 200 beds right now.
They have 200 beds right now, and they want to add more. And I was discussing it with Katrina Knight recently. They also have on-site social workers in the building that all of those folks are assigned to. So they're pushing them out. They're also building, in concert with the city and other private-public partnerships, some housing that are taking chronically homeless, I think is how she phrased it, and getting them into housing. So I think Good Shepherd, to me, is the one that I would put the most money in. It doesn't mean the others are not doing good. I don't mean to imply that. I think the Salvation Army and their new structure that they've built, I think that's going to make some differences as well.
They grew from 60 to 80
They
beds.
grew from 60 to 80 beds, but like you just said, they moved from downtown out on Martin Luther King. And it is a great facility and will be a great facility, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to walk from downtown there any longer.
Moving on, we've seen tremendous amount of growth, and some of the factors of growth. One of the things I've highlighted to folks is that the university has been one of our largest economic drivers. Both the university and the community college partner with industry and businesses in our community to help train their workforce. And as a result, sometimes these college kids stay in town and they end up staying here. And prior to COVID, UNC Wilmington was growing at a pace of 1,000 net new students per year. And for the last 2 academic years, they've been master leasing off-campus housing. What other factors of growth are you seeing? What are some of the things you're seeing that we need to be either in front of, managing, or promoting? What's positive growth and what's negative growth? What do you?
Positive growth, I think the industrial sector has been growing, and the industrial can be things in technology, it can be things in cold storage facilities that are working with pharmaceuticals or others in bulk to transport them in and out. I think the airport's expansion has really been a nice economic driver for us, and I think it will continue to be that. The Port of Wilmington is another one of the things that is improving and continuing to increase cargo in and out of our ports. But I think we've got to, we still need to just continue pushing the traditional economic growth, as you said, the trade schools, making sure UNCW, and not the UNCW is a trade school either, but Cape Fear Community College, push the nursing programs more, push a lot of the GE program out, push a lot of those trade jobs that really are higher paying jobs, and make the wages that we can get folks out of being what's considered 80% of the average mean income. But we want them to stay in Wilmington. I want the folks to be able to graduate from those schools and want to live in Wilmington, right, to be able to. And to do that, I think we've got to continue that public-private partnerships with the universities and the employers to make sure that the kids understand what their opportunities are.
Right. Yeah. What I'm impressed with your answer about the industrial, the airport, the state port, all that means local jobs.
Yes, sir.
Wilmington jobs for Wilmingtonians, I think, is a great thing. One of the other things is, when it comes to nonprofit funding, is something along the lines of economic development. We have public-private partnerships with our economic development agencies, the Film Commission, Wilmington Business Development, Wilmington Downtown. You got the NC Biotech has a presence here in Wilmington. How do you see continuing those partnerships with those organizations?
Well, I think we've got to continue with them. They are kind of on the front lines of economic development. I mean, that is their specialty, and we need to rely on them to attract new businesses or new businesses, new technologies, all of those things coming to it, which means the jobs for the folks here in town. Will folks move in from other places for some of those jobs? Absolutely. But we need to be able to make sure that we have those jobs here for them. So Wilmington Business does a great job. Wilmington Downtown is phenomenal. I mean, they are doing wonderful things with the retail work and keeping the retail active in the downtown market. And I think, again, they're on the front lines. We all need to know what everyone's specialty is, and we got to use them.
Yep. Okay. Rule, do you have any questions?
Last night we had an event with you with some of our precincts, and I saw you talking a lot to the college students.
Yep.
What's your thought about the resurgence of Republican conservative attitude in our college students?
The college students at the university were great. I talked to almost all of them last night. I think it is a very good thing. We need youth involved in politics. We need youth involved in all aspects of life, because if they are not, what's going to happen in 20 years?
Yeah.
When the folks that are involved, when they age out, we need the youth to come in. We need folks that are out there presenting the ideas that we all believe in, and getting other youth involved. And I think the UNCW folks are really, really doing a good job.
Yeah. Do you really want to be talking about aging out with the gray hair that both of us are?
Understood. I don't want to talk about aging out, but at the same time, I don't intend to age out anytime soon. But, it's a factor. But having those kids there, and they've been at multiple things, not just last night, but having those kids there and interested enough to be there, interested enough to come here on Saturday mornings and go and knock on doors with the volunteers, they're really, really engaged. And I think that's what we want. We've got to have the engagement.
The only other thing I'm going to add is that we hear talk about, it's another developer going on the city council, but you are actually really not a developer. You are an engineer.
Correct. Behind
all that. So you are coming forward with thoughtful and really scientific answers to the things that we're facing.
Yeah, as an engineer, yes, I have worked on many development projects. I worked with Mayfair, I worked with River Lights, both of which I think have their own they've made the strides in how Wilmington has grown. River Lights preserved 50% of all the open space, all the natural sand ridges, gave more access to the public on the river itself that was not there before. We designed a 4-lane road that's sitting there that when the city is ready to add the extra lanes, it's already there for them. Mayfair was one of its own. It came in and really redefined the shopping in our town. But no, as an engineer, I work for the public bodies and the private bodies.
Yeah.
We're not. We do either or. My job is to solve the problems and to figure out how to make it work.
You're a professional infrastructure guy.
I am a professional infrastructure guy. That is right. And infrastructure rolls from housing to utilities to stormwater. I mean, it's all of those things combined in the roadway systems, and that, I think, my experience in engineering is going to be beneficial. My experience with the land development code will be beneficial. I want to make sure that we are giving answers and providing factual answers in our decisions. And that goes back to that accountability thing. We've got to stay accountable for our actions.
So your company's been downtown forever. They were part of the
Since
original
1978.
Yeah, and so the revitalization effort of downtown started in 1976. And so Mr. McKim and Mr. Creed were big parts of the revitalization of downtown. And it's not easy to get through the doors of McKim and Creed.
Not really.
But I've been through there many times, and it's one of the coolest historic preservation projects on Front Street.
Yeah, it's a really nice building.
And the engineers like it dark. And they've got the 3 monitors, and it's all graphs and blueprints and lines on paper. But it's a really cool building. I wanted to give a hat tip to Mr. McKim and Mr. Key, because they've been important pillars of our community. They were both chairman of Wilmington Business Development. They both were chairman of our Chamber of Commerce. Mr. McKim was an elected official at one point.
Not Herb. No, his father was.
He was the mayor of Wrightsville Beach or something, right?
Yeah. Herb Senior was. Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. I knew the name was.
And Mike's been one of the past chairmen of the Azalea Committee. I mean, they've really been involved and influential in Wilmington for a long time. And that's what we want to continue with our company, too, is keeping all of our employees involved.
Yep. So one of the things you bring up in your campaign talks when you're with the small groups is traffic and transportation. Where do you see the state of our current traffic and transportation, and how can the city play a part in making some improvements?
Well, traffic and transportation is in our city, in our area. It's a regional issue. We've got it through Brunswick County and through Wilmington and New Hanover County, and even into Pender. So we've got to work with it regionally rather than just focused on one piece. In Wilmington by itself, there is a lot of congestion. There are a lot of folks that are sitting in traffic lights 2 and 3 cycles, depending on times of day and other things. We've got to make some roadway improvements to be able to handle that. I think as moving forward, we're going to need to make sure that as development progresses, that the roadway infrastructure is being put in place while they're being built. We've got to look at where are the projects we are looking to improve. We've got a lot of infill things that would be coming up in the city. So you want to make sure you've got the infrastructure there for them. But how do we fix the roads? It's a difficult pill to swallow, because it does take improvements. Some of the things we can do, look at retiming, or continually retiming signals so that you're moving traffic more effectively. Making sure everybody understands when new roads are built that they can use them. They don't have to just sit there unused. They're there for a reason.
And maybe amplify the DOT's notices that there's public hearings coming.
That is correct. Amplify the DOT's notice as a public hearing so everyone's understanding what's coming and when. Visit the MPO. Talk to the folks at the MPO. They have the information on all upcoming projects.
That would be the Wilmington Metropolitan Planning Organization, WMPO.org.
Engineers and your acronym.
Sorry, that's my fault.
Well, and you mentioned earlier that the River Lights project, the developer paid to relocate and paid to build that road.
That is correct.
And then they set aside the opportunity to widen the road, but they also gave
it to the city.
Well, they also gave to the county a site for a school.
That is correct.
And so the school board is now talking about a potential bond referendum that would build a River Lights elementary school.
That is correct.
Which will attract investors will begin to attract buyers to River Lights that have kids.
Yes.
So,
That's right.
So you'll start to see families migrate to that area, some of the way they have in Porter's Neck when they built the Porter's Neck Elementary, and now they're at capacity. So we got to make sure that we're building things to capacity.
That's correct. And you know, you said, I'm sorry, you said River Lights and what we did. River Lights, and the reason I will always put it on a pedestal for something I was involved in, the road was built ahead of time.
Yeah.
We did a traffic study that covered most of the southern part of New Hanover County, and there were numerous improvements outside of what was right on that property. And those are the things we've got to start working toward with any new project that's coming in. Yes, a lot of them have been approved previously, but the new stuff we can work on, and we can work on how do we get these improvements ahead of heads in beds.
Yeah. And we have a woman who just joined our firm, and she's from California, and she worked in economic development planning and infrastructure. And she said when she was looking for a house in Wilmington, her kids came to school here, and she's retired now. One of the things she did was she went through the engineering docs at River Lights, and she goes, "I know my house is not going to flood."
No, her house is not going to flood.
I mean, the guys in the firm and I were standing like stunned, like, you know how to look at plans and know your house is not going to flood? And she's like, yeah. So
Good for her.
hats up for
Good
that.
for her.
Roll.
Well, we just want to, we say this a lot. We bring in the DOT, the state DOT, into these discussions about traffic, because there are probably some that still do not know that the city of Wilmington and even the county of New Hanover County controls very little of our roads. So anything that we do around here, you have to do a dance with the state.
That's correct. So New Hanover County, a county in North Carolina, cannot own streets. That's one of the state laws. Other states you can, but not here. So the city owns roads and DOT owns roads. If in the city of Wilmington, if you want to know who owns which road, look for the campaign signs. Because the campaign signs can only be on the DOT streets. They can't be on city streets unless they're in private individuals' yards. But yes, you're right. We have to go through the DOT, and that takes their funding. It takes their the state transportation improvement plan, the STIP. Those are a scale of priority. You know, we've got to go and work for the priority. Work with our local DOT commissioner. Work with the state folks, and also any of the local, the local state level politicians to make sure that we're getting funding for some of these things and getting our fair share of funding for these things.
And there are plans in place to handle some really big choke points.
There are.
But they're years in the planning.
They're years in the planning. Several of them should have been already built. There's also projects with the city of roadway improvements that should have already been built.
Yeah, it was always frustrating that Martin Luther King Parkway was not built with overpasses. Like,
Correct.
you had the opportunity, you had the real estate, you had plenty of room, and now to add these new overpasses is going to create such gridlock.
It's going to create gridlock, and it's a big cost. I mean, we've done a lot of good strides. The 140 bypass is phenomenal. Adding in the military cutoff extension out to 140, I think is a really good thing to move traffic from that portion of the city and county out and get mobility. But you mentioned Martin Luther King. As I said earlier, when the new roads are built, they got to use them. Martin Luther King sat nearly dormant for many years because folks were going, I can just continue Market Street into or out of downtown, not realizing that you could be from downtown to Wrightsville Beach or that area in 15 minutes if you drive Martin Luther King.
When you first told me that a couple weeks ago, when you and I got to get to know, that slayed me.
Yeah.
Because that's a fantastic road.
It is.
And it adds miles, but it takes
less time. Correct. And people are creatures of habit, especially with roadways. You know where you're going and how you want to get there.
Yeah.
And if even going to work every day, you're probably driving the very same way. So when something happens at an intersection, if there's an accident or schools come back in session, whatever the case is, you're not really considering other options. You're just sitting in traffic, aggravated.
I don't know about that. Mr. Chairman, I get bored, so I always go different ways to work.
Well, I do too. But
I live on the grid, so I live in part of the older part of the city, and I can avoid the main drags
That's right.
if I don't mind a four-way stop occasionally, or just
My family's always told me that if there is a back road, I'm going to take it somewhere, and I do, and it's more because I don't enjoy sitting in congested traffic. I would like to help as much as humanly possible on the council to eliminate some of those things, but it's also, folks need to understand interconnection is a good thing. You want neighborhoods connected.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't feel right to a lot of folks, but you want it that way so that you do have, like the gridded streets you're talking about in the more the downtown area.
you learn how well somebody knows the street when they get stuck by a train on South Fifth Avenue. If they know their way around, they can race and beat the train and get across.
We're not advocating
We're
racing
not
trains.
advocating that.
But your point is taken, and that's where you go back to the gridded streets. That's why the city planning department pushes the interconnection and making sure that newer developments have, even if they're stub streets to nowhere, they're sitting there for future connection.
Yep.
But what you'll find is when you go back to make those connections, there's always a fight. There's always something about the neighborhood, the homeowners association. So that's how we're going to help a lot, is we've got to keep things interconnected. Now, I know folks in the Windermere community in that area, like your gridded streets, they were interconnected, and you can get from Eastwood Road to Market Street. Now, unfortunately, people go on there and drive too fast, so now they got 100 speed bumps. But it is still very well interconnected, so you can get from here to there without having to go all the way back up to Market and come down.
Yeah, and then they tied Mayfair into
And
the Windermere.
Mayfair's tied into it. I mean,
And then you got the Target Costco complex has
and
all
that goes to New
integrated.
Center, and it's back over to get you to Carr Avenue and all those places. So there are a lot of ways that we can help with traffic by connecting, making the interconnection.
So there's a theme I'm sensing out knocking doors, and in different community meetings that I've been to, is people are very strongly opinionated on two things. They want less development, but they want more affordable housing. How do you achieve both?
Affordable housing or workforce housing, any of the acronyms or phrases for it, it's about supply and demand. We have thousands of people that are moving into our area, whether it's just Wilmington or New Hanover County. The supply is not there. I think most of the real estate agents will tell you that varying levels of supply isn't there. So to do that, to get affordable housing, number one, land's got to go down. That's the biggest driver. The cost of building is usually fairly reasonable. But zoning, we can take into account some more additional zoning amendments that would, we need to incentivize public-private partnerships, whomever they are, because if you want folks to build or have more affordable housing similar to Starway over on Carolina Beach Road, I mean, that land was virtually donated to them, and they're able to do 80%, 60%, and 50% or 30% of AMI. So a one-bedroom unit, if your income is in the 30%, it's like $300 a month, which is unheard of.
Yeah, and so for the folks, AMI is an acronym for Area Median Income. And
Engineers.
You will know.
No, I said it earlier.
It's economic. It's not engineering. But if you watch the city council meeting from Tuesday night, a young woman got up and said, "I don't think any of you could afford to spend 80% of your income on rent," and they had to stop her because it's 80% of the area median income. Meaning, if the area median income for a family of four is $102,000. It would be 80% of that. So a family of four that's making $82,000 and they don't own a home, there is an incentive to get them in rent an apartment or rent a residential unit that is less than market rent, and it's defined by HUD, Housing Urban Development, and they do an annual rent survey that you can find on Google, and it tells you what the market rate for a 3-bedroom, then it tells you what the HUD high home rent is, which is 80%, and then it goes through the low and the other rents. And so we had a young woman get embarrassed at city council meeting, but not understanding what AMI is, and so I think it's important we break that down real quick for everyone.
Absolutely.
So what about adaptive reuse? That seems to me, I've done a couple of projects, and they love it. The planning commission loves it. The city council loves it. but it's not really well defined in the code, is it?
It's not well defined in the code, but adaptive reuse is a really, really good option for bringing more affordability to market. There's several of Market Street has several of the hotels, and I know there's a public or one of the North Carolina Housing Finance folks are building out on the end of 30th Street and Market Street for that existing hotel, and they're going to build
The Azalea Inn,
the Azalea Inn, and they're going to build affordable units on that particular location. They also did one over on Middle Sound Loop that was annexed in, but that's senior housing. So it was like 72 for basic. It's purely senior housing, but the same affordability rates. Those kinds of adaptive reuses are great. If we sit with the motel that may or may not be occupied all the time, and you're able to reuse it and put affordability on it, and you're getting the land price a little better. Maybe you can reuse some of what's the motel itself, not just having to build brand new structures.
Yeah, I've done 2 of those projects, and it's the amount of money the developer saves or the buyer or the owner saves is tremendous, because the walls are there, the roof is there, the bathrooms are there, the kitchenettes. In one case, the kitchenettes were there, the amenities were there. And one of the concerns we have with the one we're bringing down the line now is that we're going to need to have the waiver because we don't have enough open space.
Right.
And they want us to make a payment in lieu. And our argument is we're not putting a shovel spade in the ground. We're not turning a screw. We're not swinging a hammer. We're turning the lights off. We might change the paint color. We're going to turn the lights back on. It's going to be an apartment building. And there's a couple of statistics that we had Dr. Machine Gatabi here in the headquarters of last month, and a couple of statistics that's important to realize. While travel and tourism is up $1.1 billion in spending in 2024, blue-collar travel and leisure is down significantly. And those are your value hotels. And I don't want to say every value hotel needs to be converted, but we need them. We need the value hotels for the blue-collar traveler. The other statistic that's important is that residential permits, construction permits, are plummeted in 2024. I mean, plummeted, like it fell off. And when there's a lot of construction in your market, they bring, I think he said somewhere around 85% of construction trade jobs come in to New Hanover County from outside to fill the need.
To fill the need, right.
And they stay at these value hotels. So what's happened is the sales for these value hotels plummeted in 2024. They fell significant, and I mean significantly. I've seen the numbers. And so when these projects come forward, they're coming both out of an opportunity to see a new use generate more revenue, but also for a need. They're entrepreneurs. They see an opportunity. They need to make a pivot so that they can make more money. And so adaptive reuse, I think, is something a lot of people look at office buildings and think, wouldn't that make a great apartment building? Well, if you understand how the dynamics of a development of an office building is, typically your plumbing stack is right on top of the other. Each floor has a bathroom in the same place.
Yep.
And so it's hard to spread out the houses, the layout residential units in an office building without completely gutting it. And some of the older office buildings in our beloved historic downtown Wilmington used a famous product called asbestos back in the day. And you start tearing stairs and floor systems out, and you're exposing the whole community to asbestos.
That's
so you can't
exactly
do that.
right.
So,
Exactly right.
Richard, there's a couple of things coming up down the line. We got some candidate forums. I know we got one on October 6th for Braver Angels. That's going to be at Northside Church. October 8th, I think you got the Media Consortium. Is that right?
Yep, WECT and WHQR at WHQR Studios.
And Port City Daily's involved in that.
And Port City, yes,
And
right.
you can go to the Port City Daily website, and they have a portal where you can submit questions to the candidates. So that's going to be at the WHQR Studios. Are there any others?
We've got Riverfest coming up.
We got Riverfest the same weekend, October 4th and 5th. We will have a booth out there. We'll meet the candidates who are coming to hang out with us. Richard's coming.
Yep.
We're going to do popcorn, right?
We're going to do popcorn.
I hope
We're
so.
going to buy hats.
We're going to have hats. Yeah, we'll have some hats. And anything else you can think of is coming up?
No, there's not forums that I know of
Okay,
right now.
good.
But early voting starts October 16th.
October 16th, that's right. We'll be out at the Northeast Public Library for a week, and then October 25th, the other sites open up. And that's been kind of confusing for a lot of people because we were knocking doors in the area where people would go to the senior center like, well, it doesn't open until the 25th of October.
Right.
But here's your schedule, so we're giving them the schedule. Any closing thoughts you want to share with the folks?
vote for us. Everyone needs to come out and vote, whether you're honestly, if you're Republican or Democrat. At this point in a municipal election off year, we need folks to come out and vote. If you want your voice heard, that's one way to do it. So go out and vote. Vote for Richard Collier, most definitely. But come out and vote. Do your civic duty so that you're not one of the ones sitting playing armchair quarterback, but you really didn't have an input into the decision.
If you think we need to improve our infrastructure before we approve development, let's hire a professional infrastructure guy and restore common sense to City Hall. So,
Amen.
Rule?
Richard, one of the things that you mentioned is that this is an expensive campaign. The Democrats are throwing a heck of a lot of money into this campaign.
As witnessed by their signage all over the
It's
streets.
witnessed by their signage, and it's only going to get worse. How can people both support you financially and get to know you better?
Absolutely. Our website is www.collier4council, Collier, Collier, 4FOR, council.com. On my website, there's a donation link that you can go out online and donate credit cards. You can send me checks. I've got a P.O. box that's listed on my website as well. Please come out and call me. My phone number's on there. My emails are on there. Let me know if you have questions or comments. And if there's issues you want to talk about, I'd love to meet with you. I'll go meet you where you are. I don't need to worry about coming downtown to me or meeting me at City Hall. I'll meet you wherever you're at.
I love it that an old school engineer goes www.
Did I
Did I not have to say that?
Not anymore.
Okay. Collierforcouncil.com.
But that stands for World Wide Web.
Yeah.
hence the gray hair.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, I'm jealous, brother.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, listen, this is a big, big thing. This is Wilmington, one of the best cities in North Carolina, probably the best city in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
This election that's coming up is going to determine what's going to happen in our city for the next generation. So make sure that you please get out and vote. October 16th is when everything starts, and the big day is November 4th. So make sure that you get out. If Republicans show up, we're going to win this thing, and we're going to make Wilmington better for ourselves and for our children. So Richard Collier for City Council, Luke Waddell for City Council, and Billy Craig for City Council, and just
for mayor.
For mayor,
Billy
not
Craig
for
for
mayor.
mayor.
And also remember that when you go in to vote, you're not going to see R's and D's next to these names. So that's why we are working so hard to get these names out in front of you, so that you know who the good, common sense candidates are for Wilmington. So, Richard, once again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rule. Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me. Thank you all for watching.
And for the New Hanover County Republican Party, and for the chair, John Hinnant, I'm Will Sample. Thanks for listening.
Voices in the air, sharp and wild, the dropping takes with a twist and a smile.